Hey, everybody. Good afternoon. It is January 6th, right here in the United States. It is 12 o'clock in the afternoon, and I'm super excited. I am Regina Rossi Lamoth, your host and interviewer today for Here For You Connections and Resources. And I am excited to have my guest, Sue Anello, a dear, dear friend of mine. We've known each other for 8 years, and she's been also our family's homeopath for as long as I've known her. And this is our second interview. People might have heard her the first time, but we're doing a second interview because in the world of internet and social media, somehow or another, that interview disappeared. And I feel like as a new year and a new opportunity to learn something new, and for those of you who might know about homeopathy, get yourself more deeply connected. So I'd like to welcome you and introduce you to my dear friend, Sue Anello, who's all the way from London, England. Where are you?
I'm in London, yes, and it's 5 o'clock here.
Yes.
Hi, Regina.
Yay. So this is a time that Sue and I get to connect. Super excited. So yeah, it's 5 o'clock in London, and Sue's got all of her lights on, and she's dealing with different internet issues. So she's got some feedback, but we're good here. And so I'm grateful. Thanks, Sue, for taking the time to be here and have people connect. Because a lot of the people out there that I'm connected to, a lot of moms, definitely a lot of women and men in my life, a lot of them from when you used to live here and how I met you are, really interested in finding the most, I would say, healthier versions. That's how I want to say this. Healthier versions, healthier ways that we can take care of ourselves. And so that's what I feel like. How perfect, we all have the conversation of making sure our mind is good, our mindset's good, and we've got everywhere from social workers to counselors, psychologists, life coaches. And now I'm really, excited because for 8 years, you have really supported myself, my daughter, Josh when he needs to, but really my life has changed and shifted drastically because of homeopathy. And that is something I really did not know about at all until I met you. So for those viewers out there that are watching, can we have a simple definition of what is homeopathy?
Well, the official sort of definition is that it's treating like with like, and so instead of what we call allopathic medicine, which is using antibiotics, anti-inflammatories, anti-anxiety, anti-depression, and instead of the antis, that homeopathy is using similar remedies that's similar to the state that you're in. So in a more simplified version, how I like to describe it is we have a state that's our healthy, centered state when we're good and when we're feeling like ourselves. And we're pretty much free of debilitating chronic sort of illness. We might have some symptoms, but we're generally free of pain or whatever. And emotionally and mentally, we are good. We're ourselves. When we use homeopathy is when we get thrown into a different state, and that state is off center for us. The homeopathic remedy is treating like with like, in that it's meeting the state that's out of balance with a homeopathic remedy that's similar to it. And then when we take that homeopathic remedy, it puts us back into the center, and so we're ourselves again. So that's basically how it works.
Awesome. Wow. So like with like, and being able, and I think a lot of people can relate. I'm going to just use that as a way of saying, I think the first time when you met me and we were talked about it, I use that example of your child slams their, fingers in the door, right? Yeah. So A, there's pain right away. And B, before they get their fingers in the door and before everything else, their state, their way of being, their energetic way of being, they're happy and go lucky. Yeah. Slam the door, boom. That can go from 0 to 60. A kid could be screaming and yelling and feeling that pain. And, so now they're out of sorts. They're out of that state. Another child could be in shock, right? Yeah. And just freeze, right? So that is a different state. So you match that remedy with the state that the child, person, human being is in at that moment, and then being able to get them back to balance again of Does that make sense, right?
It's exactly right. And sometimes it's so instantaneous that it's kind of surprising, like watching a kid get bumped in the head and then giving them the remedy and the egg goes down on their head. You could see it. Or the finger smashing in the door thing is really, the remedy is hypericum for that. And sometimes you give that hypericum and it's like it never happened 5 minutes later. So it can be so instantaneous. And it tends to match how long something took to, like something that's sudden, the homeopathic remedy will treat it suddenly as well. Whereas something that develops more over time, the remedy might take a bit longer to work.
Yes, definitely. And I've got a ton of stories about that, so yeah, let's go into, why don't you share with the viewers? I mean, some of them might have seen this on Facebook, posted, but now they're watching live. So why don't you just share a little bit about how you became a homeopath and really, the education that goes behind it. Because I feel like I really want to kind of take away this whole like woo-woo, witchy, this is all like, no, this is a real, you are a homeopath, you went to school, you took lots of classes, you studied lots. So let's talk about that.
So I became a homeopath after suffering from postpartum depression after the birth of my second child. And I was suffering for a few months, and I went to a homeopath who I'd been to see once before for these bumps on my fingers, which disappeared after months of having these bumps. I couldn't even wash my hands because they were so aggravated. That had happened a couple years before. And then when I had the postpartum depression, I finally remembered to go see her. And she gave me this remedy, sepia, which would not be the same for everyone's postpartum depression. But for me, it matched the symptoms that I was having. And within a few days, I was completely better. And the shocking sort of thing about it was I had been visited because I was in England. There's a health visitor that comes to you when you have a baby and checks in on you. They're a registered nurse that does home visits, and that's their area, is health visiting. And she came to see me, and I failed the Edinburgh assessment for depression, for postpartum depression. And she went away to find me help. And she knocked on my door a week later, and I answered the door, and she said, "Oh my God, you're better." Like when she saw me, when I opened the door. And it was that quick from when I started, one of my patients said to me years ago when I gave her a remedy for her postpartum, she said it was like the sun came out over the Tappan Zee Bridge. Like she left my office and drove over the bridge and felt better. It was that quick. And so for me, it was that dramatic that I went in and gave notice at work. And I went to homeopathy school for 4 years, a school called Purton House in Buckinghamshire in England. And the study of, it's a 200 and something year old German science, homeopathy. It's been around for a very, very long time. And the books are very heavy. I wish it was more woo-woo. But the books I have to use are really, really quite
medical. They're medical.
They're quite heavy. And this one is all the symptom. I mean, this is just like, what I use as a tool in my daily life. This is the symptoms, the repertory of symptoms. And then this is the materia medica of all the remedies. And it says on it, can't see, I'm trying to get it right. It says on it, 1,400 homeopathic remedies.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of remedies to learn about. And there's a lot of philosophy and anatomy and physiology and all the other things to learn about to become a homeopath. And I studied for 4 years. And then I also did a postgraduate course in prescribing, which was great. And I graduated 21 years ago, 21 years ago, and I actually started practicing about 2 years before that because I was ahead. So I was practicing under supervision and flying to New York every 6 weeks and seeing patients in New York. Wow. And then I graduated and moved to Nyack, New York with my family and started practicing full time there. And I've been doing it ever since. So my practice is almost 100% in the States, even though I live in London currently. So I do ever since the beginning of last year, I've mostly done everything on Skype and FaceTime and that kind of thing. So it's something I never looked back once I started.
Yeah, and even when I met you 8 years ago, it was so amazing for me that when, I had the blessing and the opportunity to see you in person, have the full assessments in person, but most of the time, was a quick phone call, you
Yeah.
know. And I many times when we had made plans, you know, you would say, "Excuse me for a second," because someone would text you, or you had a, you know, a call. And
Yeah.
so I noticed most of your quote unquote business, yes, was in person, but also a lot in phone. And then at the time, Skype was the hottest thing. So, you know, before we figured out all these other ways of doing social media, ways to connecting. So that's really quite amazing. I just really wanted the viewers to know that this is not like, hey, go, you know, online 20, you know, hours, have a nice day, get your little certificate. That there are schools out there that, and you spent 4 years plus postgraduate to
Plus
become
20, plus 21 years of studying, because I never stopped. So I've been really studying now for 25 years, 26 years almost, because it just never, ever ends. I mean, first of all, imagine this past year, all the things I've had to deal with that I haven't had to deal with in the past. So it's required a lot of education and keeping up with things and constantly staying on top of things. And my profession also does a lot of collection of information to share around the world with each other, so that when something happens, that a lot of people get something at one time, we can figure out what's called a genus epidemicus, which is figuring out the main remedies for that particular thing, so that we can really individualize quickly. Because that's the other thing. You don't, with home, as you know, you don't say, I have a sore throat, and I say, okay, here's the sore throat remedy. It's always about the state that you're in. So all, you know, when I look in my book under sore throat, there's like 15 pages of throats. You know, there's 100 pages of different kinds of headaches. So it's a lot of honing down to what's individually affecting you. And also, part of your state is your emotional state. It's not just your physical state. And so we spend a lot of time, and I spend a lot of time studying about counseling and all that kind of stuff too, and also understanding people's mental and emotional situations as well.
Yes, the last time that we spoke, you know, we wanted to make it very clear that you know, especially, you know, working with you, and you've worked with me, you know, everybody has their, you know, whatever works for them. But you definitely work with, when I was dealing with all of my allergies and my sinuses, and, you know, I see an ENT, and I just, you know, in the beginning, when I first met you, I was seeing a pulmonary specialist, which I no longer have to see, which is super exciting, you know, as a shift in everything between that you really spend time speaking to me and asking me a lot of questions, because you take the best of the Western, you know, piece that's here, and you support that, you know. So I want people to know that, you know, you're not like, hey, just do this. Especially with my daughter, when we adopted Lexi, when I have to call you and share with you, here's a fever, you know, here's her nose, and you tell me, is it clear? Is it, you know, white? Is it green? Is it this? Is that? Does she have ear pain? And you don't know, because she's a baby, you know, in the beginning, if she has ear pain or not. You would work my way through it, showing it. And then you'd say to me, okay, this is what I need for you to do. I need for you to go see the pediatrician.
Yeah.
I need for you to go, because I'm, you know, she's working. Sue is working really hard at looking at everything, and in the States, and then be able to, you know, say, yes, okay, ear infection, right ear infection, boom, here it is. So I think that's always, you know, I want people to know that, you know, every homeopath may be per se different. I only really know you. I did meet only one other person, very similar to you as well, that, you know, you take in consideration everything, the whole, what I like to say, the whole wellness and being of whoever you're working with.
Yeah, and there are different people that practice some homeopathy like on the side, or there's people who, and this is a different thing, like people who are naturopaths may use some homeopathy, people who are sometimes chiropractors prescribe homeopathic remedies, but it doesn't mean they have the philosophical education and background to be able to do that. And so I think it's important. I mean, I'm not putting them down at all, but I'm just saying that what I do is specifically one thing, and that people often misunderstand. I hear it literally every time I pay attention to what's going on in the media, I hear it misunderstood, that people will hold up an herb and say, this is a homeopathic remedy, or they'll say, something is homeopathic when it has absolutely nothing at all, zero to do with homeopathy, zero. Is extremely common in my life. I experience this all the time. And that's because people really don't know, because factually that the homeopathy was driven out by the American Medical Association in the late 1800s. And it's been trying to get its footing back ever since, and only has the status in certain states and not in all states. So a lot of people really don't understand about it because there's just never been proper information out there for people. So people will call, taking echinacea. People do it all the time. People constantly say, I'm doing homeopathics, I'm using oils, which is not homeopathy in any sense at all, to use an essential oil or an herb or anything like that. So it's important that people understand that what homeopathy is those little pellets. You have your kit there.
Oh, yeah. Here's one version where
that's what you get in the store, like at Whole Foods.
And then here's a kit that I purchased from Sue many years ago. That's still,
yeah, and the little white pellets, you put one under your tongue, and that's the whole dose. Because to shift a person out of their state, you may not need more than one pellet under the tongue. And so that's completely different from drinking a tea or taking it or using an oil or whatever. But also it's a completely different philosophy, because none of those things are treating like with like at all.
Right. And I think that's the big piece that I think you said something really powerful, because that I think impacts almost every conversation. We're going to stay, of course, with homeopathy, but we get kind of all like get ourselves really wrapped up. So homeopathy is very specific. It is a pellet. I showed you in the case. I showed you in the store where you can get it from Whole Foods and some other places, some other versions of it, but they're pellets that
sometimes they're drops.
And drops, yes. You did drop one, but most of the time, right, that are underneath the tongue. And again, it is a very specific, like with like state, and nothing against oils. Essential oils is their own thing. Essential oils is their own thing. It's just not under homeopathy. Right. And, and we kind of do that as, I just think as a collective, we kind of just throw everything together. Like, oh, I'm working with a Chinese herbalist. I'm being I'm doing homeopathy. And that's that. And I'm clear that person who is working with you will be very, very clear about that. Like, no, that's not this. They're all different modals. For me, the modal of homeopathy has been something that's been really present in my life for the past 8 years. What's exciting, what I wanted a lot of people to share about you, is you've really done some extraordinary, of course, extensive training and work, and have also made it available so that people can, yes, reach out to you, have an assessment. You have lots of programs and packages and all of that to work with families, in crisis to long-term. And you've also, which I really have loved, is when we were able to get together, you'd come to two of my friends' houses and did one-on-one kind of beginning training. And I wanted to know, is your training, like, meaning for us to educate ourselves, not training, but like to education. So I'm going to take that educate us, like on one-on-one on what homeopathy is. You used to have that. It used to be available as a video to learn. Is that still available for people if they're interested?
You can still get a video. And I also do the teaching still. So I can teach you individually. I could do an intro class with you individually, or something more advanced. Or if people get together, a group of their friends, and they want to do it on Zoom, I've been doing that as well. I even did one with teenagers in the last, in the States in the last lockdown. I did a class in Brooklyn over Zoom for kids who were homeschooling. So teenagers. So I can do it pitched at any level, whether it's very, very beginner or all the way up to professional training and beyond. I do a lot of mentoring of practitioners. I mean, I've been around for a long time, so I have done a lot of training. So I love to do that. I love especially to do the parent training. And the other thing I do is a lot of childbirth stuff. So I love to do there's a kit for specifically for labor and delivery and postpartum. And I love to do like one-on-one training with couples or two-on-one training with couples of how to use a remedy kit in birth, where they can get the kit, and then I teach them all the remedies in the kit so that they are ready to go when they go into labor, so they can use that, because homeopathy in childbirth is just amazing for moving things along, for healing things up, for intervening when there's things that are stuck. It's just brilliant for birth.
Yes, and your story, if people missed it earlier, you got into homeopathy remembering that, you'd seen a homeopath for some bumps on your fingers, and then you were dealing with postpartum depression and felt, let me just reach out again. And you said instantly after, you were assessed and really your homeopath really got clear for you. And that remedy, you said, just shifted you like within that week, within that week, you went from, having that worker follow up with you, that nurse come back to your house and go, okay, I found somebody for you for postpartum depression. And you're like, hi, I'm good.
No, I was really good. And I never came back. That's the other thing. It wasn't like it came back and then left, or it only lasted a while. It really sorted it out. And I think it's important as well in this past year where people are under so much stress, to know that homeopathy can really help with that stress. It can help with anxiety. It can help with all kinds of obviously it can't make things better in your physical world, but it can certainly help your balance and your perception and not being so nervous and stressed out or depressed or whatever else is going on in your world that is making you. I've treated a lot of people who've become more fearful. A lot of people in New York in March, April, May were having like re-stimulated 9/11 kind of trauma because of the way the city was. And so I worked with quite a lot of people at that time, shifting that stuff. And that's work that I'm very familiar with doing, but it's been a lot more this past year than in a regular year. Like I did a lot of it in the years after 9/11, a lot, because people would get anxious in September 8 years later, and they wouldn't know why.
Yeah.
And the thing is, we always treat the source. We're always trying to treat the cause of things. So when people came to me with this, I don't know why every September I have this panic thing, and I treated, they're never been well since 9/11. It just went away, and then it never came back again.
Wow.
So that's the kind of thing that I'm also very interested in working with people on that stuff. I just want people to feel more balanced and centered and just more in the flow of life. You can't be in control of your life. That's crazy talk. But you can be in control of how you manage your life, and to be in the flow of your life rather than fighting against the flow and getting sidelined all the time and getting knocked off center. So
and I remember even like, and often, because you had some really great stuff that you had posted when people, especially in California and Arizona and all of that, when there were all those forest fires and all those fires and talk again, all relates to two things, right? There's love and fear. Yeah. And so, you can make a million words under that. It's fear, like you say, I'm uncomfortable, I'm, anxious, I'm all this, it's fearful, like, right. It's just fearful. So it was really interesting when I loved when you were posting like, hey, these fires are happening, people were worried about their homes or worried about their loved ones in that area, their animals, their pets, all of this. People don't realize it's not just, I've got a cold, I've got a headache, I've got a sore throat, I banged my finger, like the typical everyday kind of things, or, I've got the flu or all that stuff. Homeopathy really, like you said, is a really an extraordinary opportunity for people to be well, like I like to say, mind, body, and soul, because, hey, I've never had postpartum depression, but I've definitely had, I've had anxiety. And so, when I'm in that state of like, really that way, it made such a difference so that I could still go through the day that I was going through, just, not from that, high, but I'd like to say low energy, really, even though it's really high.
The stuff with the smoke and the fires, that's really true. But I also was treating the physical. I was also putting out remedies for like smoke inhalation, different various. So it's both. So it's always always all things, always both. But yes, a lot of those little sort of meme things that I was putting out that had different remedies on them. A lot of them were for things like first kids and first day at school, and different sort of separation anxiety remedies for first day of school, and then, like you said, wildfires, different things like that. And then also like yearly flu remedies and that kind of thing. How to keep yourself healthy throughout the winter. And I did have a webinar that was through the National Center for Homeopathy that was up free for a couple of years, but it looks like it's been taken down now, unfortunately, because there was a lot of good advice in there. But I also do like treating the flu and all kinds of different talks on that kind of thing. And in my class, I teach remedies for acute illnesses. So part of that is like colds and flus and tummy bugs and all that sort of thing.
So now let's now talk about homeopathy in general as a how do I want to say this? Has been, although maybe we don't hear it as much. Let me tell you, you walk into any store, you walk into Walgreens, CVS, any typical drugstore / anywhere you go now, and as parents, as conscious parents, we all want to give our children or ourselves a more healthier way of taking care of ourselves. And so, I'm the first person, when she was getting older, Lexi was getting older, it was like, oh my God, Sue, I saw, I'm not going to name brands because it's not to put them down, but like the brand of, oh, I'm giving my child this, cold and mucus one because it's literally homeopathy. It's, homeopathic. And it is because inside of everything that's written there is every single thing that I have pretty much in my kit. And I really want to talk about that because I want you to kind of share, like what the benefits and really what you had shared with me, what kind of the downfall is when we do that, because we've all been trained as people. We get a prescription or we buy something over the counter and we read it exactly as is. Take, a spoonful every 4 hours. And that's not homeopathy. Like there are times you told me how to take it, but pretty much I think like in all the years, it's been like once you've told me to take it like 3 times in a day and the next day and it's done. Because it, like you said, it pretty much sometimes takes a little longer. But what about these now homeopathic remedies that have all of these different homeopathy stuff in it?
So if we let me try and divide it into 2 things. One is there are homeopathic remedies, right? Which there are thousands of them. And then there's homeopathic philosophy, which is how you apply the homeopathy. So the remedies that you see on the shelf that have like 6 things, 8 things in them for teething or for colds and flus, and they're very low potency. Mostly they say 6x instead of 30C. They're in a very low potency. Those remedies, they're homeopathic remedies being dispensed in a way which is not homeopathic, like you said. So, but it's it's a shortcut, and it's a better thing than taking an over-the-counter. In fact, I think they stopped making children's over-the-counter colds and flu things, haven't they? A lot, because
most of them are out. There's only like one homeopathic brand that's left.
No, I mean the allopathic ones. They're not.
That many. Most of them are almost gone. Yeah, like
they're gone because they were found to be dangerous. But so there are a few. So the idea, and adults too. There's lots of colds and all kinds of combination remedies. They're useful when things are vague and when you don't have a homeopath on call, and when you it can be useful to take that to alleviate symptoms. And again, alleviating symptoms isn't really homeopathic. The homeopathic way to do it, because homeopathy, as I said, is to return you to the state where you're healthy. So you can alleviate symptoms with these combination remedies. It will work, but it won't hold probably forever. It won't hold for maybe a few hours, more than a few hours. It probably won't bring you back to balance. If it does, it's because one ingredient in there, one of the remedies, was the right one, and it just happened to be the right potency. So that's the only way. So if something has bryonia, nux vomica, belladonna, gelsemium all in it, and you get better, it's because maybe you were in a gelsemium state and you got better, but not because all these things do not add up to, most of the time, a thing that they add up together. They just don't. They're all individual remedies, and they're all at different sort of frequencies that are meeting your body. So they're useful and at the same time as a shortcut, but they're not ideal. So they're fine to have in the house. There's definitely better than ever reaching for Tylenol or Advil or anything like that if you can avoid it, because those things obviously have other effects and are toxic to the body in other ways, especially with children, with adults too, but especially with little kids.
Yeah, thank you for that explanation. And that kind of goes back to when you were saying about your book. I mean, this is the little thing that comes in my little kit, because if I look up something, just saying cold, cough, there are 4 to 5 different, remedies. So I get it now when you're saying, oh, here's this brand that's, homeopathic, because they've given you almost every version of that, for that. And it's, like you said, great. It helped. It'll probably alleviate. If it really disappears, it's because it was one of those states of that. And I know that well with you now, just for my viewers that's been on here, I've been working with Sue for 8 years. Literally, I am just like absorb her. I'm blessed to have absorbed her. Our family has utilized her services, not as a, hey, I'm going to call you once in a while. It's been nonstop when I first met her, for probably my first year or two. And then when Lexi was around, Lexi's 4. So I'd say now, in the 8 years, I think I've had this year and last year, the less that I've reached out to you, because she's been such a wealth of knowledge, and I've, utilized her services and taken this on to educate myself. I am not, Sue, I would never even, when I'm unsure, it's straight to her. But I know my daughter well enough, and I know myself well enough, because we have worked together for so long that. And it's so rare. Even my allergies, it's so funny. I don't have to be like, Sue.
Well, one of the things is because my purpose in teaching is to empower parents. So I empower you to learn how to look these things up and to be able to do it yourself, so that you don't need to turn to an expert, because if you have the knowledge, you have the kit, you're set in a lot of ways. And then you only need me if it's something more confusing, but you don't need me for every little thing. And I originally, when I started doing my classes, when I started practicing, I found that I was constantly dealing with acutes all the time. And then when I started doing the teaching, it really cut it down a lot. But I would find out 5 years later that those people who were in that class were still meeting up together once a month to talk about their kids' health. And they all were each other's, they would all go remedies with each other and support each other. And they're all still to this day, I have some of those people in my practice, and I hardly, maybe once a year, once every 2 years, something goes around, they get sick and they contact me, or something happens in their family and they need some support, but they've got it, And
yeah, I have that
with and beyond. So
yeah, I have that with a friend of mine who and has bought the kit and is training. So we always kind of touch base. And then a lot of the moms reach out to me because they remember you. They remember there are certain things that I am 100% listen, if you do not know that you need to have this one particular remedy, which is because so many kids fall and, bump their head and, hurt themselves so quickly. That's the go-to, right?
Yeah.
Because it's the of shock. The body is shocked. The state is shocked. I slammed my finger. The kid fell, whacked his head. They're crying, but their state is shock. Yeah. So, even my own daughter, who speaks amazingly, knows exactly what to take. And to the point where it's we'll hear something, slam. Now she doesn't cry as much, but she'll come down the steps and she's like, Mommy, I need, and then she'll say what she needs to, have. So I feel there's that emergency kit that everybody must have in their, in their bag. And that I'm 100%, for that. Yeah. And my daughter's state is very different than my state. We both deal with a lot of sinuses. We both deal with a lot of, kind of sinus issues. Sue has used her students to work on me because I've, have had surgeries and work with ENTs and have taken so many antibiotics for so long that my system is really not strong like my daughter's. It's honestly very weak. So it's been a long time to work on that, right? But my daughter, is a very specific way when she gets sick. And there's a very specific remedy that works for her.
Yeah.
And I have another friend, kid, who they'll be like, oh, what did you give your daughter? And I'm like, how are they? Are they clinging on to you? Are they whiny? Are they crying? Like that? No, my kid's great. Well, then remedy's not going to work.
That reminds me of getting called by the camp nurse when my kids were in summer camp and having the camp nurse say, can I give the other kids who have a sore throat the same remedy that your kid had because it really helped her? I was like, no, it's not how it goes. But,
no. Yeah. So I think it's so much fun. And Josh isn't here, but Josh, so my in-laws just moved here. So they're 100% living here full time, for a month now. And Josh loves it. I mean, when he meets new people or, we talk about stuff and, she's been with them for a couple of days because school's been closed. We'll have remedies just in case. Yeah, you never know, just in case. And so we literally have like, this is for this is for this, but definitely for the one if she falls and whacks herself and bumps her head. That's really the one. And we just had this conversation last weekend and he is like elated. Like, guys who know my husband, he's, chill, but he's just like, I've got to tell you, here are the 3 times that I swear, like, if you think it's like magic, and he just knows it. He knows the story of like when I broke my hand, he knows the story of when we first had Lexi, and it was like that instant, like, and she was a baby, and it was just like, Sue was so great. I mean, I was just like, Sue, a fever. And you're like, is she sleeping? I'm like, she is. She's sleeping. How is she sleeping? Soundly. But she has a high fever. She's fine. Ah. And it was just so funny because it's like, we think fever, she's got to have something. No, she's calm. She's sleeping. She's like, and then finally we're like, all right, will you take a cloth if you want, put it behind her neck, and the, fever went. And then when she woke up,
bring it down a little bit. Because the fever is burning off the pathogen. That's its purpose.
Yeah, but we're not, but you see what I mean? We lumped into, now we have this conversation that fever equals bad.
Right.
Now,
I know.
Fever gives us a warning that it's fighting something. Now, of course, we don't want to go to 100 and whatever. I think, what did you say to me? You said to me, call me if it goes to 103.
Yeah, you want to go. You want to be careful about anything above about 103, but also in a child. But it's different in adults.
Right.
It doesn't mean we don't treat the person, but we could at 103 or something. You could bring it down a few degrees without bringing it down so low. Because if you take a fever reducer, you're bringing it down to normal. The person thinks they're better, and they get up and they do things, and then it causes things to go on longer. And you can treat with, you can use, like you said, you can use sponge the person down a few degrees so that they're not in any distress or anything. This is not for kids that have a febrile convulsion, but there's remedies for all this stuff too. But to bring it down to a safe level so that the child is managing. If they're in pain and they have a fever, that's a different thing. Then we give the remedy for that state. But we don't want to interrupt the process that the body is trying to do, because the body can't, the body is making a fire to burn off something. We don't want to get rid of that. That's actually
and how many of us, if you guys are watching, and feel free to tag, how many of us, we've all done it, definitely me before I met Sue, which was got a fever, got this, I'm going to take this medicine because I'm on my way to work, and that's that. And then get that relapse worse than it was, because she said, I like to call it you're putting a Band-Aid, right? Band-Aid's supposed to quote unquote protect, so it doesn't get infection, but the fact is that, you're really faking your body out. The body is made, honestly, if we can do our body's made to heal itself. So now, we get a fever and we think, oh my God, and we're throwing all this aspirin in to go back to this, like you said, quote unquote, normal state. It's not normal state. It's a quick fix, and then like you said,
temporary.
yeah. And then we get up and we're like, And then the next thing you know, so many of my friends last year had double pneumonia for the first time and pneumonia for the first time. And I was like, because they were just taking stuff, worked their way until finally they collapsed, you know?
Oh,
and then they went to the doctor and it was double pneumonia. And I didn't know. And I was just like, well, you're taking a million things.
Mm.
It's so interesting because I think it's so much fun. I do want people, and tell me if I'm wrong, a couple of people have asked me, like, they've got the kits from you and stuff like that, and they've gotten some homeopath pellets and said, I think I gave them the wrong one. Oh my God, or my child got into it and took it. I'm freaking out. What do you want to say to people like that? Because I think I know the answer, but I want you to say it.
So there's a couple parts to this. One is that if it's about meeting a state. So that's about resonance. It's about how you're resonating. So it's like you're resonating at a certain, your body is like blood and guts and all this kind of stuff and a frame and all that kind of thing. But what makes you alive is this vital force it's called prana in yoga. It's called chi in Chinese medicine. It's called the vital force in homeopathy. The remedy is meeting that vital force and trying to put everything back into balance. So it's having an energetic resonance. If you take the wrong remedy, you don't resonate. So nothing happens. You can't hurt a person by one time giving them the wrong remedy. If you give them the wrong remedy every day for 2 weeks, they're going to prove the remedy and start getting the symptoms of the remedy probably, but you can't harm somebody by just giving them the wrong remedy in a acute. That's one thing. The other thing is, and this is the crazy thing, to make a bottle of remedies, you take the pharmacy takes a vial or a bottle of sugar pills and drops the remedy, which is in tincture drop, into the pills. One drop of the remedy is coating all the balls in the entire, a couple drops is coating every single ball. Mm-hmm. So that vial is actually one dose of remedy. So it only becomes more than one dose when you space out how often you take it. So
showing people the bottle.
Right. So there's only one drop of the remedy in there. So you take 1 or you take 5 or you take 15. It's the same amount if you take it at one time. So a little child eating an entire vial at one go is really only getting one dose of the remedy. And if it's not their remedy, it won't resonate and nothing happens. What you don't want is them going into it every day and taking it, because then they're, so that's one part of it. The really weird thing in my practice, and I don't know if it happened with Lexi, is that most of the time the kid will take pulsatilla or the remedy that's most often the remedy that they're given. For some reason, they go into the kit and get that remedy and take it. I don't know.
No, you know that. That's what I said earlier. My daughter knows exactly her 3 remedies, right? And pulsatilla, like Sue was saying, happens to be the remedy for my daughter when she's not well, when she's stuffy and dealing with a cold and a sinus thing. It works for her. She knows it to a T. If we're falling and, you get, hurt, I can't even think of it right now, but I guarantee if she was here, she'd tell me the name. Arnica. Holy cow. Duh. Yeah. Literally that's what happened. I mean, we heard her, boom, and I was like, what happened? She's like, I fell, I hurt but I gotta tell you, she thinks it's when I make her laugh, if I can make her laugh, she doesn't need arnica because she's fine. Because she loves that. She thinks that she's you. People, she knows Sue for a long time. Sue is also blessed to be my friend, so it's like Aunt Sue. So she'd be like, hey, can I go in Aunt Sue's kit? And I was like, first of all, it's mommy's kit, and second of all, you don't need arnica, But it is interesting because arnica, I got to say, is the hottest thing since, before COVID and everything else at the gyms. But everybody I know out of my friends who are, gym people or workout people, arnica is a thing. So there's arnica cream, the gels, all of that, which people swear by. I've never used a cream. I've just, used the pill. But yeah, so somebody asked me the other day, oh, my godchildren were here. And my goddaughter really had a lot of pain. And I couldn't, for whatever reason, because Lexi took it out and I forgot I put it in her drawer, the arnica. So my best friend went out and got the arnica cream. And she rubbed it into her shoulder because she just heard it. She's just So what do you think about
arnica is good for it's like for soft tissue and that kind of thing. It's helpful. It's in all kinds of things now. Yeah, it's been very because they also did they did research and they found that it was, I mean, I always give it to people before and after surgery, but they did some research and found out that was a good thing to do. So certain hospitals do that. They give it before and after. Some plastic surgeons realize that it helps with bruising after plastic surgery. So they sell it to their patients to take after facelifts and things like that because it helps with the bruising. So, but it's been helping with bruising for 240 years. So,
yeah. Well, it's like I said, much more amazing to be able to do that before and after surgery than taking, all of the other things that are not so helpful.
Yeah, it's a big area for me actually, is giving people remedies for after operations and things, because it really does speed up healing. And also dental work, and also, dental surgery, dental work, all kinds of things. Remedies are really, really helpful for healing up from any kind of an injury or any kind of an assault to the body, of any sort.
Yep, that's awesome. You and I have a conversation coming up if that all happens for me as well, right? Because we're like, hey, get myself prepared and ready. Awesome. I love it. This has been so much fun. We're about 46 minutes into this. So is there anything that you want to share with people? If you have an offer or anything else you want, because I could sit here and talk to you for hours. We can tell stories. We can, if you want me to share a story, it's right now, it's your platform. This is your time.
I think it might be good for you to tell the story about your hand if there's time to do that, because the other interview got lost. So that'd be great.
Sure. So yes. So I meet Sue from outside homeopathy. Her and I happen to go into a similar, for lack of a better term, conference, together. And then, we got to meet and we connected and we got to have coffee and we became friends, and I got to learn about, what she was up to. So I broke my right hand. I don't know how I did it. I think I have an idea of how I did it, but I picked a ton of weights up, when I was working at an assisted living facility, and all the weights, which I thought I was so cool, were in a box. Picked them up, did it, and the way the box dropped, I didn't realize later until my right finger was swollen and the whole hand was swollen. When I got to the hospital, that they took x-rays and that I had broken my thumb and I had a floating bone here. So very long story short, they put a cast on and they gave me a prescription. I don't even remember what it was for. It's a popular one that they give you, but I don't do that. And then they gave me like lidocaine patch, right? Something like that. Whatever that is. Anyway, so I went home and they gave me a chart 0 to 10 with the cast on, and like the pain was excruciating. We didn't pick up the prescription because I know that I'm allergic to that type of stuff. And I was fighting off Tylenol it was just crazy pain. So we went back to the hospital to find out that the person who put the cast on put it on wrong, re-put the cast on, came home, but I was in insane amount of pain. And I think I took maybe Tylenol. I don't even remember. It didn't matter, but I was on the floor, like literally crying and begging, like, God, please make this go away. And Josh called Sue, and we had what we had. And literally he was like, her state, because she was asking her state, she's in hysteria. She's like, everywhere, and talked about the hand. And I don't remember the remedy. Do you remember the remedy for that? Because it was broken bone, and swelling and like hysteria. I was like,
I don't remember what I gave you.
But it was something.
Hypericum, but other things too.
Hypericum and something else, because I'm almost positive it was hypericum, but something else. And he literally, and she said, put it underneath her tongue, then wait 15 minutes, do the other one underneath the tongue. And he literally, I've never seen my husband so worried in his life. It was so, he was so upset. And it was within that 15 minutes, like, took the hypericum from like screaming, crying on the floor, on my knees, begging God, like hysterical, to like pain was, if it was a 20, it was down to like a 2, so you knew it was there. Like, it was there. It was like 2 or 3, but it was manageable. And my hysteria was gone because it was the hysterical state that I was in. And I was able to go to sleep. Like, that wasn't going to happen. That was like in the hospital, back to the hospital, like all in hysterical, like hysterical, and including like not having a really great doctor who, said he thought was a joke was, well, maybe she has cancer in her hand. And my husband almost punched him in the face. And literally stayed with that remedy because I think he told me to do it one more time. And I was great. So now I had this like cast on. Most people have issues. I didn't have any issues. By the time I got my cast off, I went to see a hand specialist. You had kind of kept me going, just to check to see how everything was. So I have this floating bone that's still in my hand. I never got surgery on it, what they wanted. I can use my hands, people. Can you see? Did some exercises, right? Because I had between working with you and my amazing massage therapist who really gave me some exercises. Once in a while, what's great I can do with this hand is I know when it's going to rain.
Yeah.
It was like a little achy, but everything that was supposed to be done. And you did that for my foot as well. I don't think you remember. So I deal a lot with, everybody knows, I'm a swim instructor and all that other stuff. And so I dealt with shin splints and all of that stuff. And rather than, like, of course, rolling my foot and doing those other things, I went to see also at a doctor, 2 doctors that said that I had drop foot and that I needed to have surgery and they were going to cut my foot and move my tendons and all that other stuff. Took my remedies and then also did the exercises just like my hand. And that was, again, 8 years ago. So no surgery for the foot, no surgery for the hand. 8 years later, I can feel when I feel it, but, and that to me, it's not like all I'm just saying is that people are quick to give you an antibiotic, give you surgery, like, give you surgery. So that's what I can say for me. And my daughter, it's just, we did it when you did that, you did it at my girlfriend's house when we had all the moms together and one of the kids was hysterical and you were able to quickly kind of assess what was happening and gave that remedy and watch that kid go from like hysterical to like instantly. It's, it's amazing because it is that like to like state. And I think that's really what I want, the viewers to know, that here's this for this that's happening. I'm literally giving you the thing that you're dealing with and the state that you're dealing with. So like, I love Nux vomica because it's like my favorite name. Like, it's like,
it's strychnine is what it is.
Right. So when Sue was like, oh, and I was like, really, I had really upset stomach and I was nauseous and this and that. And she's like, telling me all these things. And she's like, I want you to open up your kit and look at this. And I'm reading it and I'm like, oh my God, you're giving me the, like, of course I want to get it up and out. It's that was like kind of craziness to know that you're giving like this arsenic or something,
because it's the homeopathic version of it. There's nothing of the original substance left in it, but there's the energetic imprint of it, and that's what's treating like with like. So you need things that are very poisonous when they're first dealt with, when you first pick them or grow them or whatever, and then you render them safe and make them homeopathic, and then there's no side effects. It's really
But when you first hear about it, when I was first being trained, I was like, what?
I know, it's crazy. I know.
But it's amazing. So that's what I want to kind of leave with people. Like, because if you really go into history and you go back to history, there's a lot of all of this that has been used, like you said, for so long, when you're saying like cocaine, right? Like, no, you're not doing cocaine like cocaine is today, but it's the essence of,
Yeah, which I use for people who have altitude sickness, and it's what you have coca leaves if you go to Peru, right?
Yeah.
Well, this is the homeopathic version of it. So people take it for altitude sickness, and people are using it right now for a condition that's been going around a lot, where people they feel like their oxygen is dropping and they can't breathe, and it is similar to altitude sickness. And I used it quite a lot recently. So it is it's amazing what you can do with something when you use it homeopathically. You can harness anything from nature and make it into a healing force, which is, I guess, what I want to leave things with. I mean, if people are interested in finding out more about homeopathy, there's lots of information on my website. If people want to contact me, they can actually contact me through WhatsApp, through my website, and through my Facebook page, which is not my personal one, which I don't really use, but the homeopathic educator and consultant Facebook page. So that's probably the best way to get in touch with me if you have more questions about anything. But that's really,
That's great.
That's kind of a basic sort of, I try not to give too much information because it's so easy to overload, because it's it's a heady and intellectual topic when you get going. And
I think we did it kind of simpler this time. I'm going to have it posted. It's, super easy. It's Sue Anello, Anello, homeopathy, right? .com. And what's great is when we're finished with this interview in a couple of seconds, I am going to be sending Sue the link, and I upload it to my YouTube page as well. So people can go onto YouTube, and you can then have it for yourself and upload it to your website or whatever that may be as well, and just share it. So we are super, Sue is in England, so there's a big time difference.
It's 5 hours. So I mostly work from, early in the morning your time till about noon, 1 o'clock your time. But it's, and sometimes it works out better for things like if a kid gets an earache at 4 o'clock in the morning, you can contact me. I'm up.
Yeah. And so, so great ways to, reach out to her, be able to ask her some questions, give her a shout out, especially if you're, listening to this and be able to say like, hey, I found you because I saw your interview, with Regina. She's just a wealth of information, a blessing to have. Sue knows a lot of people, and, anybody who's into learning more about it. I'm just leaving everybody with why I say I'm here for your, connections and resources, because I am out to connect you people out there with topics and information of things that matter to you. And maybe you don't even know that you want that information. So I love that. I love you, Sue, so much.
Thank you so much.
Great. Everybody have a great day. Enjoy. And we will see you guys soon.
Bye. Thank you.